welcome to Cloud Stories, a podcast exploring the humans behind the accounting technology ecosystem. Today, very excited to be joined by Bryan Williams. Bryan is passionate about helping tech businesses and the people within them succeed in realizing their ambitions, unlocked through the possibilities of connected, innovative technology to grow, scale, and deliver incredible customer outcomes. With a strong, authentic network across the Asia-Pacific region and a global tech community, he believes there's never been a more exciting time to drive forward partnership ecosystems. And with that, we're going to have a conversation about partnerships, and I think it's going to be almost a masterclass in partnerships. So very, very much looking forward to this. So welcome, Bryan.
Thanks, Heather, and great to be here on your podcast and for your listeners ahead of Christmas, which is coming up shortly, not too far away to close out 2022.
Absolutely. And I should have warned you, I'm here on my own. So if Santa comes and knocks at my door, I might have to go and let him in.
It wouldn't be, it wouldn't be a recording in this day and age without the courier delivery, a dog interrupting or a baby crying in the background. So we'll see how we go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Bryan, I came to know you during your days at Vend, the hot sauce supplier, with a side hustle of a point of sale solution. So fill us in. Tell us about your story and how you came to establish Hockey Stick Advisory.
Yeah, thanks, Heather. So I think for myself is, in terms of the journey of how I got to this stage is, I've always seen the value of partnerships ongoing, and even in my then time, I sort of grew into a senior account manager role for a period of time, and I got a chance to travel around Australia and New Zealand chatting to merchants who were using the software, and I'd encourage them to onboard and use more connected apps because I would see the benefits of them to be able to operate sharper businesses. And indirectly, a few years later, that's how I got to work with Nick Holdsworth again, as I got to lead across the region down here on the Xero side to try and get more apps connected into either the small businesses, the accounting and bookkeeping solutions, or for financial services ahead. And so I've always sort of been intrigued in this space, and I've had a natural curiosity, which has sort of stemmed to where I've had today. And how I got to sort of launch Hockey Stick on the back of that is being Melbourne-based, stuck in lockdowns, as many of us were. I did a little bit of consulting on helping a few other tech companies build partnerships and partnership ecosystems, and I got a bit of a flavour of how that would work. And then on the back of that, I've been involved with a few startup accelerators over the years. So Startup Vic down here in Victoria, and over the recent years, Blackbird's Giants Mentor Program, and so I got a bit of a taste and feel of, firstly, what the benefits of connected technology can do in my day-to-day role, seeing the benefits and way too many case studies of those who rise up through using and harnessing the technology. And then on the other side of, I got a taste and a flavour of consulting and how do you deploy that knowledge information into setting up a business. And so it was far from a knee-jerk reaction. It was a natural migration, I suppose, or my sort of pathway to sort of where I've ended up today. And a bit longer than 6 months in now. I'm enjoying life on the other side with lots of different challenges, but going well so far.
So, as you said, you started exploring this new opportunity while you were working at Xero. And a lot of people at Xero seem to have this side hustle type of work happening. Is it something that's encouraged there?
I think it's by definition design. They're trying to advocate for small businesses to thrive, right? And the side hustles is a part of that around it. I know, like in tech industry, we're seeing all these examples alongside, and I think in Xero, like with a strong accounting and bookkeeping practice, you also get exposed to these award-winning digital cloud-first firms who are doing stuff, and so the inspiration is really all around us. And so to sort of explore what that looks like further. It wasn't uncommon. I know Google had like a 20% time, and I've got a few friends over there who get involved in all sorts of initiatives on the side. And I think in this sort of day and age, it's not uncommon, and increasingly the gig economy in those aspects, and there's various components which people are, testing or trialing new ways of working going forwards.
Yeah, it certainly is interesting, and I think it nurtures the environment. So where does the name Hockey Stick Advisory come from?
Yeah, it's a bit of a play on words and a bit of fun. So there's a general belief of startups and scale ups that there's an up and to the right growth curve of like, we're going to go to the moon in aspirations of either eccentric or hopeful or ambitious founders, which is I love to see. And often they don't always have the recipe to get there, right? And what does that look like? And typically businesses, they'll have their core sales function, and that's usually focused on either having a direct sales team, a digital sales team, or product-led growth to be able to get there. And what I'm trying to come in to do is companies who are kind of at a scale-up stage, they've got product market fit, the founders know they want to either grow internationally or expand through other channels. And I've seen and experienced and been able to use my IP to help them head up and to the right with a hockey stick style shape through partnerships and all the benefits that unlocks. And that's what I'm sort of bringing to the table.
It's we have a number of intersections, and one of those is that my husband plays both ice hockey and field hockey. Spent many a time at a hockey field. So let's talk about partnerships, Bryan, and being mindful that we're talking to the accounting and the bookkeeping industry. And we have vendors, accountants, and bookkeepers, all with slightly different nuanced requirements listening in. So if we could talk about partnership relationships in relation to them, what do you mean by the concept of partnerships?
Yeah, sure. So in a tech environment, it's usually build by partner as the strategic decisions as you get bigger and go down and for an accounting or bookkeeping lens, it's, outside of your core services, who else can you connect and partner with in order to provide more value to your clients? Now, there's buzzwords of advisory, and we could spend the time talking around that left and right. But you don't have to do it all yourself if you don't choose to, or you don't want to outgrow that component. And you've got the opportunity to partner with others to be able to bring those services to life and nurture those relationships so they'll deliver a great service. But imagine for each of your clients, if beyond tax compliance or, completing their BAS or doing advisory or components is like, I'm interested to get this grant, the export grant. Who can help with that? Oh, I need a lawyer to set up some components. Who can help with that? And to have a trusted network in and around you, that if you choose by design or size or growth or aspirations that you don't want to offer these other components, then why not fulfill all the needs of your clients through partnerships? I think that's the opportunity that accountants and bookkeepers have to sort of relish. We've had a lot of work. We've had a lot of work, just some watering, some nurturing, and see what comes back full circle.
And I guess you could have informal or formal partnerships.
Yeah. So you've got the opportunity to recommend someone. Or go chat to these guys down here. You can, if it materializes, and there's a common sequence, and usually you'd prioritize all the components of what is the jobs to be done for a small business. And if there's a bunch of themes or it might even be by industry or sector where you're like, hey, I've got a lot of tradie clients or a lot of farming clients, then what else do they need to do? And if you're regularly sending leads or recommendations across to another trusted partner to deliver those services, then the natural formal partnership to come with that might evolve and grow into that in time. But in the instance, you're trying to provide more value to your clients, and that's where the partnerships opportunity is to sort of realize.
So what do you perceive? You have talked a bit about this, but are there any other benefits of partnering that we should unpack here?
Yeah, there's a whole range, right? So to start off with, it's services which you don't have to offer yourself. It's higher NPS and customer satisfaction. And so if you're able to provide and connect people with trusted services, and they're like, oh, I love working with you guys, you always help me out. If you can't help me directly, you've got the opportunity to go with it. Then in return, and as you water and grow these, over the years, especially when I was at Xero, commonly like, oh, we grow by word of mouth. Okay, well, if you amplify partnerships, then maybe you can accelerate word of mouth, because if you started recommending people to say to a legal firm or to someone who does grants, like I said, or other services, then there's a high chance in time that you're going to be top of mind on their side, and that word of mouth in return will start to come around. So it is an opportunity to access new clients, which you otherwise wouldn't get. And if that same conversation reverses there at a legal firm, like, hey, I need a great accountant. And like, oh, actually, we work closely with these guys, or I need someone to help with BAS, then you're top of mind. So, you know, partnerships are a two-way component. Add more value to your clients, but in return, if you can accelerate clients coming back to you, then that's a good news story for a lot of firms.
And I guess that's possibly your move from making it informal to making it formal, and getting the right balance there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So a random man on the internet I saw called you the Prince of Partnerships, so it must be true. In your opinion, as the Prince of Partnerships, how have partnerships evolved over time?
Yeah, I know who you're talking to on that one as well. Desmond, who's in part of Hat's Quarter. So, yeah, always have a good laugh with Des. So how has it evolved over time? So in a traditional business sense, I'm talking around tech to start off with, is that there's defined business units over the years, right? So it used to be sales, and then it used to be operations and marketing. And partnerships used to be a component which was over to the side. It was a component, was like, the CEO was like, oh, I know these guys, go chat to them, or someone worked in sales for a period of time, can you go chat to them? And it's becoming a prominent and strategic asset for a lot of businesses now, that those who invest in partnerships and do them properly and water them and nurture them and expand through it is a growth opportunity for the business. And so in time, it's definitely gotten more serious. It's taken more serious. The benefits and to go with it have definitely been realised. And behind the scenes of all that, and which is really pleasing on my side, is there's a lot of actual partner tech coming behind the scenes to actually measure that now, and a lot of this tech's only a few years old. And so Dane McBain from Canalys in Florida, who's like the leading analyst globally in this, he's got a map of over 220 different partner tech solutions out there. And you picture like the Xero ecosystem of 1,000+ apps, and HubSpot's got 1,000+, but there's all this tech which is emerging. A lot of it's only a few years old, which is coming through to be able to measure. Like, ever if you introduce someone to someone else around, how do you track that behind the scenes, and what's the commercials and what's the benefits, how do you make that easier, which is really exciting.
Yeah, no, that is really interesting, because it does seem to be almost a difficult thing to track, but we cannot measure what we cannot manage what we cannot measure. So where has the partnering approach gone wrong in the past? Are there pitfalls that we should avoid?
Yeah, so I think the intentions are always well set out from people who are growing out the partnerships, and like from where it's come from, where it's like, hey, go chat to all these people and try and get some business or get some leads or try and offer more. The approach is usually passed over to someone with like a sales-like methodology, that partnerships is only there to evolve, to go and attract new business and try and extract customers from elsewhere. And in reality, it doesn't work that way, and it's frankly, quite annoying. So you picture if someone comes to your firm or accounting or bookkeeping firm, and they say, hey, we want to partner with you, and can you introduce us to all your clients? It's like, the approach is wrong. And in tech, and it's definitely at Xero, I saw that approach far too often. And so the way to go about it, inversely, is you need to add value, you need to build trust, you need to build those relationships, offer something back in return for a period of time, so you can earn a trust with the partner that you want to work with before you can expect stuff in return. And so it's an investment. There's a saying, Jared Fuller from Partner Hacker and Estate says a lot, is that a partnership should be a strategy, not a department. And it's like an investment ongoing before you start to reap rewards in return.
And I guess also part of the one of the pitfalls could be is you develop a partnership, but then the other partner does something that doesn't align with your value and your culture, and you need to extract yourself from that partnership as well.
Yeah, so it's important to have just clear expectations on both sides around what it is and also what it isn't, to go about it, and how do you work together, and what is the road forward. And that's where, as you formalize it over time, if it requires that, you start to really just make sure that it's kind of like a rules of engagement, that how you sort of promote each other or push that sort of stuff to go going forwards.
Cool. So what's the difference between an ecosystem and a partnership?
Yeah, partnership is typically a channel per se, and it's a distribution, right? Like you buy a car from a car dealer, you're not buying from the manufacturer itself, and a partnership's typically one-to-one. And you know, you go to the supermarket and you buy a range of things, and that's effectively distribution from partnerships which are locked in to go around it. Whereas ecosystem's the third-party component where there's the points of value that's added and sort of collected together, right? And talking around the Xero ecosystem, which I'm familiar with, as you are, Heather, is that it gets better when there's a whole range of options in the marketplace for various solutions to be able to provide third-party solutions or extend the value of Xero and or others that collectively together is the ecosystem together. And they'll all start to work together collectively. There'll be competition in there, which helps them continually improve and move forward. And so the ecosystem is where the magic happens, the flywheel per se, as Amazon originally coined it, to make the whole environment hum.
Absolutely. So I'm keen to talk about examples of some great partnerships, especially within the accounting and bookkeeping industry. And I'll just throw in and start by suggesting there's a gentleman you might know called Chris Wheatley, who is one of the moderators of the Small Business Brains Trust Facebook group. And I've known him for over a decade now. And he always says, I've got to go for that. I've got to go for that. Whatever issue you have, I've got to go for that. And it's interesting that he's managed to grow this group with his other moderators. And there's now bam, 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 referrals happening, partnerships happening, et cetera, out of it. So do you have other great examples of how partnerships work? Other examples of great partnerships working?
Yeah, so on the accounting front, if you look at the event series which happen nationally ongoing, whether conferences up in Sydney or Melbourne, ABE, Accountex, they're partnering with industry advocates or tech vendors in order to bring together that conference. Without their help and promotion through a partnership, those events don't happen. They can't work in isolation. They don't have the reach to contacts to go about it. And so in exchange, obviously they'll pay a sponsorship component to be part of it, to invest in it as per XeroCon or roadshows to go with it. And so on the events aspect, the events only happen through partnerships to go about it. The other one on the tech side is that the partnerships are underpinned by a strong integration. And the integrations, and the better they are, no surprise, you add more value to your clients. And they are partnerships directly as well to automate information, to improve efficiencies and offer more between those and so on those components. And so in reality, they're actually all around us in a day-to-day component. But I suppose the opportunity is for accountants and bookkeepers is around, well, who would you partner with that's closest to the core of your services, which can complement what you're offering yourselves?
And I guess to that, many BAS agents may partner with a tax agent. So many bookkeepers may partner with an accountant, and they get to know the way they work, etc. And a lot of work can flow back and forth, and they have that great communication channel happening as well. So how can you harness partnerships to offer more for your customers?
Yeah, so alongside, I'd recommend to sort of start closest to the core, right? So whether you're a BAS agent, a tax agent, or accountant, or pushing to advisory or management accountant, whatever the specialty is like, what else is your ideal customer? What's that services which you've made a decision not to do? And if you can't do it, who can do it alongside you, and go down that route? It's no good. And we've seen many attempts over the years by many apps who might do a very small niche, and they want a bunch of other unrelated people to go and promote their services. But if it's the closer it is to alongside of what your services, then it makes most sense, because it's complementary by design of what it is. And that's where the real depths of the sort of partnerships are that sort of come to life. And so for a prioritization process, it's not too hard to sort of work out who they might be based on your unique circumstances.
And so you answer that in reflection to the accountants and bookkeepers. How would you speak to like the accounting apps or the vendors in the industry in relation to that? How can they harness partnership better?
Yeah, so in the same instance, who are they targeting? Like, who is their ideal customer? Are they selling into enterprise firms, into sole traders? Is it into multi-entity firms around to go about it? And then in terms of who they partner and build their own ecosystem over time around it, like what does that look like? Are they services which extend the value of what they offer quite closely? And do they have sales teams or digital processes or product-led growth components where you might be able to extend the value through some integrations to make your product offering even more, right? And so a lot of the accounting apps or vendors might have a point solution or a niche. They just solve a component, right? And, like look at Account Kit in and around of what they do, or a bunch of these, Finload have done really well in the recent years. They just build a solution, but it's likely that an accountant or a bookkeeper at the end is using other workflows throughout their day, and who are those partners who will complement that as well. And they're also probably trying to sell to the same sort of audience, similar, once you're able to identify that. And so if you picture a XeroCon or one of the major conferences and you've got all these stands and exhibitors set up, effectively most of them are trying to sell to the same sort of person. And so if a lot of them work in and around nicely together, why don't you partner up to sort of either access some of their customers in the right way or go to market together to be able to bring a stronger value proposition together.
Yeah, absolutely. And another way you can identify that is if you ask your customer base what other tools and solutions they are using, and then approach those tools and solutions. And some of them you may know because they're very vocal, and then there might be others out there that you don't know, who you have an untapped market that you can both work with together. So how do you go about prioritizing which partners to work with?
Yeah, so, beyond making a strategic decision around how far your services go around about that, and be very defined, like don't offer something that's, you have to, or, trying to, component, make a decision around where you draw a line on yourself. And from there, like you said, Heather, correctly, is like, how else can we help our ideal customer? Is it, we want to get tradie clients, we want to get more of them. Okay, well, what other tradie apps would plug in and around the accounting solutions, and how do we chat to those? It'd be a very logical component to sort of work through as you sort of triage to go around that. And so, you don't have to reinvent the wheel or over-engineer it. Like, start with 2 or 3 around it and get those humming, and try and build a bit of a blueprint around how do you approach this, and then build it out from there.
You're very purposeful and strategic in how you look at this. I got that from, I was listening to your interview with Petra on Trusted Authority. Is that the right?
Oh, yeah.
You're very purposeful in this. So how do you go about measuring partnership efforts?
Yeah, so you got to think about what you want to get out of it, I suppose, and then from there, start to reverse engineer, like what efforts you're required to do it and who would do it to go with it, right? And so if you're working in the business and you're a small business, then how much capacity do you have to actually invest in this component? If you're a bigger firm and you've got someone to say, hey, we want you to go and lead this project, it's a different story to go about it. And so I suppose it comes back to the strategic vision of what you're trying to bring forward and what you want to go out of it and how you invest in it, to sort of be able to measure what return or expectations you are to sort of harness back in return to go about it. And so to answer your question, Heather, I think it'd be reflective of the size of your firm and the purpose of what you're doing, and just to start with 1 or 2 and get started, and then build it out from there.
And I guess in some instances, accountants and bookkeepers, a lot of their partnerships are actually with their vendors. And like, I know I see my vendors as a part of my business team, and the people, and that's one of the interests for me about the humans behind the software, because I see them as part of my business team. But yeah, whether you're referring work or trying to get other people involved with what they are doing. So we are facing challenging economic climate. A global recession is looming. What are your thoughts on this for the tech industry? Is embracing a partnership model an opportunity to survive and survive and thrive strategy for businesses?
Yeah, 100%. If the more touch points you have into complementary services around it where you're top of mind ongoing, then there's a groundswell movement as an ecosystem model in itself, right? And so, I know, and through research and various other marketplace and ecosystems of stuff that I read, that those who connect to more apps are less likely to churn, or they're more likely to be higher value clients. If you can offer more than your standard services in offer more through partnerships, whether official or not, then you can offer more, and so you'll be able to bring on growth easier. As well as the most pleasing component is, the partnerships are actually a triangle component, right? It's your business, your partners, but best of all, it's the clients in the end, right? And so if they're using connected tools and they're plugged in, and they've got the efficiencies and automation and all the benefits which all the software promises to come together, then they're more likely to be successful and also survive to go through it. And so for not only retaining clients, but growing clients, I think in these economic times, I think there's going to be a bit of a moment where partnerships, it's sort of time to shine, because, a lot of us who have been in this space have seen the opportunity for years. And as we head into a recession globally, I think it's the opportunity and the benefits which I talk of, I think are really going to come to light.
And I just jumped off a Xero ecosystem webinar, and one of the things they said was they could see if a business was accessing more of their apps, then they were a stickier business for them overall. So if you are an accountant or bookkeeper and someone is accessing your go-to guy on grants, your go-to bank, your go-to mortgage lender, your go-to SMSF advisor, they're perhaps in your sphere and staying stickier with you for the longer term, because leaving is complex.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so the switching costs which come to actually up and leaving, it becomes more complex, and the more things you plug and play into it, or the more connections, as well as building that trust for your end clients. Like, why would they up and leave you if you provide a core service and you're connected and plugged in? I like the guy you referenced earlier around, like, someone who can always add to a conversation of, like, I know a guy to help you and stuff. It's a great mandate and philosophy to live.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we had some listener questions for you, Bryan. So what are some of the most progressive apps you've seen in the ecosystem? So Troy Brown asked that question of you.
Yeah, and I do some work with XBert ongoing, just for full transparency around it, and the reason why I do some work with them in particular is I do feel like they add, an accounting file on steroids and add to the data quality, but it's able to make sure there's more informed information to go around with it. To your point earlier, Heather, around some of the learnings from the webinar you're on earlier. I had a view for years around what trends were sort of coming through the ecosystem, and some of those which are progressive and moving along, it makes sense for me to sort of work with in some capacity in a post-Xero world, and XBert's one of those guys because of what they're about. And we're at an exciting tipping point where they're actually we just need to get out there and tell more people around what they offer and how they can give some time back to a lot of staff. And it's hard to hire staff right now, we know, and through some of the workflows, automations and audits, I'm quite bullish on their future in particular. And they serve the emerging category of data integrity, which is something that sort of popped up increasingly in recent years. Beyond them, I think in a increasingly hybrid or in work environments, I'm seeing a lot of just in general, the employment apps come through increasingly more, where the rostering, scheduling, the forecasting of payroll, managing remote work and whatnot and stuff. I'm seeing them come to the forefront and expect it. Anyone following the tech news over the last week, AI is everywhere. Chat. You can't go anywhere without seeing sort of the content that's going to write it all for us, or we tell it, or it takes a picture for us, or all this sort of stuff. And so I think that's got a way to go, but it's definitely a way to watch. Beyond the one that was talked about and had one of the fastest growth of ever that's come out this week.
That's
just in recent weeks as well.
GPT that I think you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. One of the fastest product-led growth companies, Jasper.ai, is already a little bit ahead of that without the fanfare and the virality we've seen this week. Notion, which is the document collation app, has got their own version of it. It was only 2 weeks ago Canva released their own version of it to go with it as well. And so there's this whole industry of there's AIs at the forefront now. It's already been around for years, but it's definitely its time to shine. So interesting to see what sort of user cases come out the side. When this sort of technology comes out over the years and APIs are released in various capacities, there's always edge cases around it. And that's where the real exciting innovation comes. So I think it's an area sort of just to sort of observe and watch, and we'll see.
Absolutely. It is an area that's in terms of communication, it's an area that is of interest to me and for listeners. If you jump over to the Two Drunk Accountants podcast, we had a whole session talking about communication apps and communication AI, which you might find listening. So with that and talking about sort of the industry and industry trends, is there anything else you'd like to share about the outlook on the tech industry in the short or in the near term ahead?
I think there's an opportunity to sort of lean into it. Like regardless of what size firm you are, I've seen it time and time again that, just help yourself with one new app around it, or one problem that you're looking to solve around it, and just be in a mindset of moving forwards down this space. Whoever's listening, you're probably listening on a phone. You've probably got 100 plus apps on you. You didn't sit down and install 100 apps straight away, right? Mm-hmm. So when you're thinking about how you operate your business, try and consider like where you're really stuck or what can you automate. And then there's likely a range of solutions out there to go about it. And most importantly, whatever route you go down, just do one at a time and do it properly. Go deep in it, solve one component, and move on to the next. And one part of the business I'm really enjoying, Heather, as I build it out, is using all the tools myself. And now I'm getting the chance to really get my fingers into some cool bits and pieces ongoing. And I've got a long list of others I want to add as well, but I'm just progressively building components out.
Excellent. It is part of the interesting side of running the business is having all the apps and the gadgets and the add-ins happening and automating things in the background for you. And if you, as Bryan said, if you do have something that is you think you might need to automate, throw it up on social media and ask people what's out there. The research that you do, you'll be surprised at what people will come back with and how it will actually save you money and sort of turbocharge your operations. So with that, is there anything else, Bryan, that you'd like to share with our audience, and how can our listeners get in contact with you?
Yeah, sure. So I think sort of just in summary is that I think there is an opportunity for, regardless of size of what you're at today, there's partnerships which you can offer outside your core services, which is going to help your clients to win. And if they win, they're going to be happier, increase customer satisfaction, and it sort of secures the sustainability of your business going forwards. And so, lean into it, harness it where applicable, and just take it one step at a time as you build that out. And so I have done a little bit of work with a few firms since sort of leaving Xero, just around what an app stack looks like. And as per the partnerships ethos, if I can't help, if people reach out, I'm most always willing to pass on to who I would recommend can also help them move forwards as well. And so there is a bit of a pay it forwards component, and we've all got the opportunity to sort of help each other win and thrive ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. You have the opportunity to build some amazing relationships and gain this knowledge about an area, because it's interesting, because when you went out into it, while it makes perfect sense, I did wonder, is there a business in there? But obviously, clearly, helping people do that is really, really important, and is possibly a sort of an untapped or unrealized opportunity for a lot of businesses out there. Now, we did talk a lot to the accounting and bookkeeping industry, but to the vendors out there. So thank you so much for joining us. How can our audience get in contact with you?
Yeah, so follow me on LinkedIn under Hockey Stick Advisory or myself, my own name, Bryan Williams. I'm quite active on there, posting around various partnership methodologies and principles, upcoming events, webinars, and whatnot. I'm also leading Partnership Leaders APAC chapter, which is an extension of a US tech community, and we're looking to amplify the impact and awareness of partnerships down here with some big plans in the next year. So stay tuned on that one.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Bryan, for joining us today. Really enjoyed this conversation, this masterclass on partnerships, and look forward to hearing from you again.
Thanks, Heather. Always a pleasure to chat.
You've been listening to the Cloud Stories podcast. From here, I suggest you join the Xero Mastermind group on Facebook for advanced conversations around the ecosystem. Subscribe to the informative Accounting Apps newsletter, which gives you a great overview of the ecosystem, available at heathersmithau.com. And I encourage you to connect with me on LinkedIn and also subscribe to the Cloud Stories podcast so you never miss an episode, and it helps other people find the podcast. I'm Heather Smith, and you've been listening to the Cloud Stories podcast.